Hi guys, so for this episode of Better the Meta, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts around killing or beating the 5 or 6 knight list. So last week I posted up a bit of a poll, what you guys thought, how would you go around, trying to beat that list. So what I've got is a list of armies here, and I'm just going to go over some of the tactics that I would think about when I'm facing 5 knights. Now obviously I only play a handful of armies. My main army, what used to be Eldar, so I'm very familiar with Eldar, Dark Eldar, Harlequins. That I've kind of got covered, or covered, some might say. Then we've also got the other army. Obviously, I play as Deathwatch, so I know that very well, and I've got a much better idea of what guards can do now because of the allies that I've started to bring in, along with knights. And after writing one of our guys on the mentoring ship a Gene Stealer cult list, I've got a pretty good grasp of them. And my new army that I've just started is Admech. Okay, so that's kind of where, and the other army I've got is Orcs, but that's nowhere near tabletop ready. But I do have some ideas as to what I would do if I was facing knights. So obviously, the big bully is the Castellan, which is a huge problem. So I want to go over some things around deployment. I want to talk about threat ranges. I want to talk about ultimately what is it you need to do in order to win that mission. Okay, so the huge benefit of one of the things that you need to remember when you are playing 5 knights is a couple of things. They have minimal resources or command points. Okay, number one. So, and they are very CP hungry, okay? So there's a few things you can do in order to really hit home with that, okay? And a lot of it is just about baiting your opponent to spend command points, all right? So that's one thing that you can do. As soon as their resources are gone, they're nowhere near as efficient at killing you, and also they are much easier to be killed. Okay, so that's a couple of things to bear in mind. And the other thing is as well is, depending on if you're playing ITC or ETC or generally just out of the book missions, 5 knights can only be in 5 places at one time. So I'm going to go over some of the things that you can first of all expect from playing 5 knights, and then also what will happen in regards to what it is you can do to counter these things. Okay, so in what I'll do at some point is I'm going to get a guest on to talk about like the real minutiae of knights and get a real expert at playing knights on the show, so he can have a much better kind of give you guys a much better, deeper understanding, and I can kind of quiz him, which I think will be a really interesting interview. So one of the first things that they've got is the errant. Okay, oh, hang on, let me get these names right. So I'm just going to bring up my Knight Codex quickly, just so I can make sure I get my words correct. I don't want to give you false information. So, Knight number 1 that you need to be aware of is the, where is he? The Gallant, okay? So the Gallant is a little bit more of a combat monster, all right? The Gallant has got the chainsword and he's got the fist. Now, basically, he's got an extra attack, and also he hits in combat on 2+. So he's a really good combat character. And obviously, when he uses Stampy Feet, he's going to get 15 attacks rather than your regular 12. And he's hitting on 2s in combat. Remember, he moves 12 inches, okay? And typically, what you'll see with that is a couple of things. Number 1 is potentially a 2-up save, relic on him, very good. Because when you hit most things in combat, most things are -1, -2, so he's typically on a 4-up save, all right? Even if he's on a, even if most combat weapons like Thunderhammers are at a -3, it's as good as giving him a 5-up invulnerable save, obviously, because he's going from that 2-up to a 3+. So that's probably the relic most people take with him. Then the other aspect is, depending on obviously what house they've gone for, Crast is pretty good because they reroll basically hits or failed hits in the fight phase. Very good. House Tarin allows you to roll an additional d6 and discard the lowest on your advance move. And then what you can do is basically, with a Warlord trait, Landstrider, add 2 to advance and charge rolls. All right. So he's now potentially rolling 2d6, adding 2, and then also to that charge, which makes him extremely potent, because there is then a stratagem which allows you to advance and charge. Okay, so you kind of see where I'm going with this. This guy could be, 24 inches away from you maximum, depending on the deployment, so that he'll be literally put in the middle of the field, right on the point, anywhere from 18 to 24 inches away from you, and he will be running 12 inches, advancing probably 6 to 8 inches, okay, and then charging you 12, obviously, and adding 2 to that. It's called Full Tilt. Use a stratagem in the charge phase. Choose an Imperial Knights vehicle. That model can declare a charge even if it is advanced. That's a super strong combo. Then what you're able to do is also put him in Deep Strike. And then what you can do is bring him out. I can't find the stratagem here, but I'm pretty sure there is a Deep Strike stratagem, so you need to watch out for that. But basically, he can then come out from Deep Strike and then get that +2 to charge. So now he only needs to roll a 7 on that charge range, okay, which is absolutely massive if he's got that Warlord trait. Some of the other things you see is House Tyrannus, because on a 4-up he can stand back up, okay? Again, pretty nasty. So you think you've taken him down, and he stands back up, and then like a lot of the Questa Mechanicus can spend 1 CP and he can fight in his full bracket. So again, they've got some really potent things here, but essentially they're really, really CP hungry. So typically what you see now is this allied in approach with the Imperial Guard or Rusty 17. So that there are a few combos just to get those extra CPs. But let's just say you're facing 5 knights. So that's knight number 1 that you really need to look out for. The second knight to look out for is a Crusader. The Crusader typically has the rapid fire battle cannon, which has got long range, 72 inches, and then also a 36-inch basically Gatling cannon, all right, which is beautiful. That's one I like. So you can, one of the relics you can take for them is typically Endless Fury, 14 shots, and every time you roll a 6, it does multiples, and it's strength 6 -2, 2 damage. So it's a beautiful weapon. And then obviously you've got the battle cannon as well, which is fantastic. That -2, D3 damage, double D6 shots. He really is an absolute gunboat. He's perfect. It's sitting at the back, keeping everything out of range, and just basically hammering you from that distance and picking on units, moving 12 to get within, because he's got a 48-inch threat range. He can move within 12, get that 36-inch range, hammer a unit dead, and then yeah, so that's another knight to look out for. And typically what you see with them, which is becoming very popular now for some reason, is the Crest Knight, the Crest Crusader, because they get that +2 damage for their relic, the Huntsman's Mark, +2 damage against other Titanic vehicles. So now your Avenger Cannon is 4 damage a pop at every wound you get through on a knight. Okay, so that's the other bad boy to look out for. And then obviously you've got the Castellan, the big boy. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in the big FAQ. I think he might have a points increase or something around that to make him a little bit weaker. But this guy literally point clicks, and kills. All right. And he's got, let's bring up some of his stats for you so we can be a little bit clearer on him. He's not that great in combat because he's only hitting on 4s. He only moves 10. He's a little bit slower. But he's got a plasma disseminator, range 48 inches, heavy 2d6, strength 8 -3, 2 damage. And typically what people do is give him like a relic which takes up to strength 9, 3 damage, I think, something like that. Then you've also got the shield breaker missiles, 48-inch range. They can be fired once per battle. Invulnerable saves can't be taken against that. Strength 10 -4 d6 damage. And then you've got the siege breaker cannons, 48-inch range again, heavy 2d3, strength 7 minus 1 d3 damage. The two twin melter guns, obviously only range 12, and then the volcano lance range 80. Heavy d6, strength 14, minus 5, 3d3, and you re-roll failed wound rolls against Titanic. Okay, so this guy's pretty nasty, all right, but you got to remember, if he whiffs, and what most people do is take House Raven with the Castellan, because there are so many times you can roll a 1 within all of your amount of shots to hit, to wound, and damage. You can re-roll the number 1, and that also includes on a d3 the numbers 1 and 2 because they count as 1. Okay, so you can re-roll that dice for 3 CPs. Very, very hungry on the Castellan. So most people go House Raven. House Raven allows you to advance and shoot as normal. Again, very, very strong. So basically, what you've got here is a very, very fast combat knight. You've got a bit of a gunboat that's got lots of different Dakar from the Crusader, and then you've got the Castellan, the heavy hitter. All right. So they're your 3 bad boys, and then you've probably got another sort of smattering of maybe a knight with a close combat weapon and a Gatling cannon, or just because they're a little bit cheaper. Or you've got the Helverins, which are the long range 72-inch 2d3 shots or 4d3 shots each, strength 7 minus 1 flat 3 damage. They can get like a stratagem reroll hit rolls against fly, or you've got the Warglaives, which are a little bit better in combat, and they've got like a melter lance. I think it's like 30 inches. Okay, they can do like a sweep attack, or they can do a stronger attack with their chainsword. So they've got a couple of different options there. Okay, so that's typically what you're going to be seeing in fighting. So let's have a look at this from an army perspective. All right. So if we take, for example, let's just use the ITC as an example. We're not worried about secondaries. We're not going to worry about Maelstrom cards, okay, per se. Well, let's just think about some of the basics. You need to kill stuff, and you need to hold objectives, all right? Now, one of the best things about the ITC in regards to terrain and also other aspects of terrain within the regular book missions or ETC is knights have a really difficult job interacting with the terrain, okay? So quite simply, you can put a model, literally, let me bring up a, when you're doing your deployment, so let's go over that first of all. Let's bring up deployment. And this is one of the things that I do as well. If you do ever would like it, or if you ever would like a list from me, what I do is I go over the list, what it does, and how to play things. And then also I bring up these nice little diagrams. So what I do is kind of draw, you know, your deployment out and all that kind of stuff as a bit of a side note. So anyway, so let's say you've got your piece of terrain here, okay? Got a nice ruin. Now, most people make the mistake of literally putting their units or their models here right up against the piece of terrain, all right? Now, the problem with that is in order to be in combat with something, you just have to be within an inch, okay? So literally, the knight just has to put his why am I doing that? The knight just has to put his massive base within an inch of your model. He doesn't need to necessarily touch you, he just needs to be within an inch. But he can't pass through terrain. So the best thing that you can do is with your terrain piece and then your models when you're deploying, is simply put your models back an inch, okay, from the terrain. So now he can't actually get anywhere near you and your models are going to be safe, all right? So that's one of the simplest things you can do, and you can make your opponent aware of that, of what you're doing is that inch, or all of your models are over an inch away, okay? So now when he puts that basically base, he won't be able, up against here, he's outside of that inch, all right? So he now can't engage you in combat. So that's one way you can quickly negate against the combat knight, all right? So That's how you can deploy some of your units. The second thing is, if flyers are actually a very, very fantastic and good bit of kit to have in the game at this sort of point in time, because so let's say you've got some pieces of terrain, you've got some ruins like this, you've got some big line of sight blocking pieces of terrain, you've got some ruins your side, and then maybe over here you've got, I don't know, like a tree or a hill or something like that, right? So now your knight is there, he's here, maybe you've got one here, maybe you've got the smaller knights at the back, you've got your 5 knights, okay? You've got the 2 little ones, your big bully up the front here, and then some like Crusader and Castellan, something like that, okay? So if they, let's say, deploy first, even if they don't deploy first, you can pretty much guarantee with a knight player where they're going to go. It doesn't take a genius to think, right, well, they're probably going to put the Castellan or the Crusader somewhere here. Because their bases are so big, they're going to put their Helverins at the back or their Warglaves at the front. That's gonna be what they do. So the best thing that I can recommend is you literally, if you've got flyers, you literally pick a side, okay? So you kind of want to castle up. And you want to castle up as much as you possibly can, like, for example, your like any tanks at the back here, you want to sort of put them out of line of sight. You want to hide everything you possibly can, okay? And then you put your troops inside the ruins, like we said, over an inch away. In this way, then, what you can start to do is be a little bit more tactical about what you're doing, because now you can send over your flyer and literally plant his base right there, okay? So now you don't even need to kill this knight, because the only way where this guy's going to go, and if you had a couple of flyers, you can then really mess him about and start to put him here. So what you can now do is, you might lose one of these knights planes because they might get shot in the next turn, but if their knights are hitting your planes, you're actually doing a really good job, because now they're leaving all of your good stuff alone, which is going to help you score points, okay? Because now this knight, this combat knight, he can't go through this gap, it's too small. So he's going to have to start to move around this way to get to you. That's 1, 2, 3 turns to do that, all right? By this point, you can either bracket him, or you can just then, even if by the time he gets to turn 2, this unit of chaff maybe you've got hidden over here, what you can actually do is move that unit of chaff to that position, and you measure out 12 inches and then really give him a long charge. But basically, you're going to move block him again. So he gets to this position, and you then move out. You move out right here. So when his base is in that position, you literally move an inch away. You move over 3 inches away. And that's a really good distinction to make, because then he can't heroically intervene in your turn. All right, so you always need to be 3.1 inches away, and just tell your opponent, all of my guys are 3.1 inches away, so you can't heroically intervene. That way, he's then got an option. He can only move that far, charge you, and then consolidate. So now he's here. So you've basically took him out of the game completely. And I did this against played in a tournament. I literally did this for 6 turns. I had 5 rangers. All right, have another 5 rangers. Cool, eat that. Have another 5 rangers. Eat that. Meanwhile, my Dark Reapers in the corner could just fire and kill absolutely everything else, okay? And I was just constantly move blocking this guy, and he was just getting so annoyed. So, yeah, that's a couple of things that you want to, think about move blocking. So, like I said, you can use your chaffy little units, or you can use planes or even rhinos, any sort of thing that you don't really need that much, okay? Just push it 3.1 inches away and happy days. All right, so we've spoke about deployment in terrain, spoke about obviously hiding things. I don't need to go over too much about that. So already you can be armed with some of this knowledge even before you get in this fight. All right, and then what you want to do is if they're running a Castellan, they're going to be worried that you're going to try and kill it. So if you've got a couple of tanks, you just want to essentially pick on him once with a shot, and then maybe even split fire and pick on another knight, okay, and make him pick which one he's going to rotate iron shields on, okay. And typically it'll be that Castellan, because they're worried, oh, I can't lose the Castellan, I can't lose him. So they spend 3 CPs, cool, and then just shoot. Absolutely everything else, I would probably, turn 1, I would pick on the Castellan, if I'm in this matchup, depending on my range of units and things. But I'm going to pick on this guy here first. Let's use a different colour. So I'm going to pick on this guy. He's then going to rotate iron shields for 3 CPs. I'm probably not going to kill him. But what I can kill is one of these, or in basically delete 1 or 2 of these Helverins off the table. Okay. Now they've got no backfield. So now they've got no way to actually look after their home objectives. So now they're going to struggle to score, because that really puts this player in a bit of a predicament. They're going to need to keep their Crusader back. So that means now their Crusader has only got a 36-inch range. So when this Crusader moves back over to a home objective, when he moves back over here, all of a sudden, his 36-inch range is only getting him to here. So he's not actually in much range of here. And if he does come forward, well, he's leaving his objectives behind, and you're going to score more because you're going to get board control. They've got a knight over here being messed about. They've got a Castellan that's just wasted 3 CPs, and you've just took off 2 units of his, basically. Okay, they've got a 5-up inbund save, toughness 7. You will then take some losses in your second turn, all right, because you would have moved your units out to get line of sight. And maybe you lose a big hitter, all right? Now, pretty much the Castellan could kill one, and maybe with the other one, kill a second one, okay? So at this point, you might be, if you're playing like Guard, for example, you might have 3 or 4 or 5 tank commanders, or 4 tank commanders you'll be able to have, maybe a couple of Lehman Russes, something like that. So you've still got plenty of Decker, even if you lose a couple. This guy, you can literally just move block, all right? You can take him out of the game, feed him a unit every single turn, all right? That's okay. You can do that. You can afford to lose that many models to him because you're getting board control everywhere else, all right? So that's a couple of things that you can then do. And then once they're out of CPs, then all of a sudden you just pick on the Castellan and take him off the board, and one Crusader's not going to do enough by himself, and you can pretty much leave him alone for the rest of the game, all right? So let's have a look at some armies in what you could do to basically kill these knights. So let's go back with our original setup. Okay, you've got your Helverins, you've got your big Castellan, and then you've got your Crusader. And we've got my hill back in as well. My hill back in. Right, so Nids and Gene Stealers. Best thing you can do, Aberrants, right? They can't screen because they've got no screen at all. So your Aberrants are going to drop down, and with the right buffs, based on the list that I wrote, will smash a knight out of the park, okay? The combat one you want to leave alone because, again, you can movement block him. The one you want to pick on is probably the Castellan, okay? Because this one's probably got that 2-up save. It's going to be quite annoying. He's only going to have a 3-up, so you're pretty much taking him to a 4-up or a 5-up, and you can get rid of this Castellan when you deep strike in, okay? So he's gone. Now, all of a sudden, and again, you want to make sure that you don't get charged. So again, depending on positioning, if they're smart, they'll keep the Castellan and this guy close together, the Gallant, because then that way he can then countercharge you. So if you drop here and kill him, he'll just kill you, which you kind of don't want. So sometimes what you might want to do is look at the positioning basically and think, right, well, can you get rid of the Crusader, move into cover or out of line of sight with a consolidation move in, or a wrap or something like that? So that's one thing you want to be doing. So even if they do come 12, they can't make that charge. You then come out and you punch the next one. That would be perfect. All right. But if that's not an option and they've screened pretty, or they're keeping pretty tight together, then yeah, take down the Castellan, or the one that's going to hurt you most. All right. Now, the Castellan isn't going to do that much to you if you've got a Horde army. But what is probably the Crusader, because they've got a lot more shots, or the Gallant, because he's got a lot more attacks in combat. So again, pick your target depending on your list, all right? So really focus on, if you've got loads of big monsters from NIDS, maybe get rid of the Castellan. If not, get rid of the Crusader, okay? So that's those kind of covered in a nutshell. And I'm obviously, I could, you know, go on for ages and ages about all this kind of stuff, but hey, I want to give a bit of a brief overview and just give you some different ideas. And basically, this is all about food for thought. Okay, so Imperial Guard, like I said, just you can really outrange them. Okay, you've got 72-inch range on your battle cannons. Earthshaker cannons have got all the range, and you literally huddle everyone together, old grudges on one of them, and you basically take it off the table. All right, happy days. They will fail enough 3-up or 4-up invulnerable saves, and they will go down to that amount of firepower. In old grudges is an amazing warlord trait. Everyone within 6 reroll wounds rolls, and Catachans are brilliant for this because you can always get that 2d6. Pick the reroll of the dice on how many shots you get. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, really, really good way of. And obviously you can fire twice if you only move 5 inches. So you can pop out, and the order I would use, most people go for reroll ones, and I think that's a mistake. I think you want to go for pop smoke, because pop smoke gives you a -1 to hit. Now, as soon as a Castellan is hitting on 4s, he's nowhere near as effective. Okay, so literally pop smoke with everything after you've fired. Happy days. Okay, you're going to be in a really good position there, because it will just keep you alive for so much longer. And if you're alive, you can do some work. If you're dead, you can't. And getting the reroll ones will be coming later on when they're downgraded anyway, all right? So you need to keep your big hitting units alive for as long as you possibly can. So let's look at Eldar. Eldar you need to be a little bit more tricksy with, obviously, as the nature. So first of all, a couple of assets that you've got. You've obviously got Jinx, which takes down invulnerable saves by 1. And I'm going to talk about a sort of pure Eldar list here, not a Dark Eldar, because that is the perfect combo for killing knights. Because you've got the Haywire, you've got the Jinx, which is -1 save, and then you can Vect rotate Iron Shields, which is just brutal. So they're just basically on a 5-up or 6-up invulnerable save, and they're just going to go down, okay? So anyway, let's just say you're running Craftworld. You've got your Dark Reapers, 10 of them, and you've also got your Shining Spears, and you've also got your Jinx and Doom. All right, so again, with an Eldar list, with Ynnari, it is perfectly possible to kill 2 knights, but you need to think about how you're going to do that. So depending on the list, here's a couple of things that you can think about doing. So let's say you've got your 10 Dark Reapers at the back here, all right? You want to have a Warlock within 6 inches, okay? I'll come back to that in a minute. You then want to have your Skyrunner jet bike and your Farseer jet bike together. And ideally, they want to be within 18 inches, okay, of one of the knights, or maybe even 2 of them, all right? So you've got your, and it's really, the combat one's not going to hurt you because you can move block him probably with planes. You want to make sure you're hitting either Castellan or the Crusader, or both. Now, typically what will probably happen is that your Gallant, the the Castellan will probably have that 4-up invulnerable save, and the other one will have a 5-up. All right. So here's what you need to do. Let me get this right. So you've got your 10 Reapers back here, and then you've got your Shining Spears over here. All right. Now, this is the play. The optimal play, I think, is this. The Shining Spears move around to here, okay, to get that charge off on the Castellan. You jinx the Crusader. So you're taking his invulnerable save now down to a 5-up, down to a 6-up, sorry, okay? This one has got the 4-up, so you're not going to hit him. You're going to jinx this guy, right? You then doom this guy here. You doom this one. So you get the +1 to cast, you jinx that one, and doom this one. Now, if you really wanted to be sure, if you're not confident in this, then the best thing you can do is just doom and jinx one of them, and then fire at them with absolutely everything. But here's my thoughts. If you really want to shut down knights and you're a confident player and the powers go your way, then you can obviously do this, okay? So what you do is you cast your Soul Burst power on your Reapers, and they get, within 6 inches, you can get reroll 1s to wounds. So these are guided, and then they're firing twice at the 5+ invulnerable save Crusader. That's going to pretty much kill him or bracket him, because you're going to put in 20 shots, all right? 20 shots, hitting on 3s, re-rolling misses, about 18 hits. That then takes you to 19, that's 18 hits. That then takes you down to 9 wounds. You roll 3 1s, you re-roll those, convert a couple more. So you're probably going to get, I don't know, maybe 11 to 13 wounds through at -2. They're on a 5+ save, and everyone then is 3 damage. So let's say they save, I don't know, 4. So then you might have like 9 have gone through. 9 times 3 is 27. That kills that knight quite comfortably, if that power goes off. And then what you've also got, if they rotate Iron Shields here, which they might do, they're still on that 5+ invulnerable save because you've jinxed it. So regardless, they're on a 5-up, right? So they might save their rotate Iron Shields for the Castellan. That means they're spending 3 CPs. Then what you can do is shoot with your lances, then charge. But what you want to do is spend a power to empower these guys, and that gives them +1 to wounds. And now in combat, they're wounding on 4s, re-rolling from Doom. They're re-rolling hits of 1 if they're Samhain, or Samhain, whatever you want to call them. So that's enough attacks to really hit this Castellan pretty hard. And then what you do is wrap him, because he can't fall back from combat, okay? And especially if you've got Protect off, he's at -2, you're on a 2-up save, so now you've got a 4-up save. And you've probably got Fortune as well. So you've probably got Guide, Fortune off, you've got Doom, and Guide, right? So they're Fortune, they've got a 5-up invulnerable save. They're going to chill there pretty well, all right? And then all of a sudden, this guy's gone, this guy's pretty much dead, and this guy here is going to have to try and kill these spears and do something about it. If he doesn't, then the spears will probably kill that Castellan, because the next turn they've still got the +1 to wound on. So although they're strength 3, they would normally need 6s. They're now needing 5. Doom's still in effect, so you're re-rolling all failed wounds. They've got enough attacks to kill that Castellan in their turn. They then fire off, and then all they need to do is tag a Helver in, and you've literally won the game at this point. All right, so that's how you do it with Eldar. You can do the same, very similar, with Dark Eldar. Obviously, you've got the Ravagers, and you've got your Talos. So you could have the Talos Bomb moving up with the Haywire. And again, all you need to do is add a Doom and Jinx into that mix from a Farseer and a Warlock. and all of a sudden your disintegrators just absolutely tear through. And especially if you've got haywire on your Talos, and then you charge and you can cast on a Coven unit, reroll wounds. So that's another option as well. Harlequins struggle, to be honest, because their fusion is so easy to save against, but their haywire is really, really effective. So again, really you need to have Doom in that mix. So I'd always take a Farseer with Harlequins, so you can get Doom off, so you can re-roll that failed wound rolls. And it's on the wound rolls is where you do your damage. You don't need to worry about Jinx so much because you're just dealing mortal wounds. So it's really the Doom is the one you want, and then just lots of smites help. So if you're running Chaos, obviously Demon Princes are fantastic, and also then just lots of smite will take them down. Again, you don't need to worry about their invulnerable save. You can just hit them really hard with movement blocking from things like Cultist. You can then use like Firing Twice Obliterators if you're running that kind of list, or if you've gone more for the demons, again, you're just move blocking, and you're just scoring more than they can, and you're letting your smites chip away. It's not going to be a quick victory, but you know, you probably grind them down slowly, all right? Orcs, I would take a couple of things in the list. I really like Tank Busters. So you've got Tank Busters, 15 of them, because they can reroll hits against vehicles, and I think there's also a stratagem with a certain culture, they can reroll wounds. Again, really, really good. That does a lot of damage to knights. Then what you do is you just run in there with you got your shock attack, or your big mech gun from the Vigilus campaign book. He's firing twice, and then you've probably got about 15 looters firing twice as well with Daka Daka Daka. So again, or you'd probably put the Daka 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 on the Tank Busters, because they're re-rolling the hits, they're re-rolling the wounds, and they're going to do a job for you. So you jump them over, get them in range, unload their payload, and they're going to die next turn, but they've done their job. They'll take down that knight. And then obviously you've got the Relic Claw, which is really good. You can put him on a war boss, put him in a truck or a battle wagon, or to jump him over. That +1 to charge might be enough to get him in and do a number. So orcs can definitely do it. Big units of boys are going to struggle, but typically you've got some weaponry there. So that pretty much covers most of the lists that I could think about. And then you've obviously got your Imperial lists. So many different ways of Imperium lists. You've got your 3 Smash Captains from Blood Angels. You can plug them in. You can redeploy them, charge 3d6, fight twice with the Thunder Hammer, +1 to wound. Smash Captains still kill knights pretty effectively. You can add a knight in. So a Crass Knight, so that +2 damage against Titanic vehicles, amazing. So you could have a Crass Castellan, you could have a Crass Crusader Knight. Either one is pretty good, all right? Deathwatch, here's what I do with Deathwatch, is I deploy really, really aggressively. Typically, because people know that you want to have second turn with Deathwatch, they'll make you go first. And if not, you just go first, and you basically put all your boys within 30 inches of one of the knights, regardless of whatever one it is, or you at least put your teleport homers within 30 inches of a knight. So then that way you can teleport over, and then you've got 3 units firing at one knight, and that should be enough Daka, because what you can do then is you're re-rolling 1s to wound. And then on one unit you play, so this is what I do. I had a game the other day at the GT, and basically what I did was he had a Crast Knight over here. I put 2 big units down within 30 inches of that knight. I had my Crusader and then my Tank Commander as well. And basically what I did was Tank Commander went in, my Knight went in. This unit here spends 2 CPs and they get +1 to wound, so now they're wounding on 5s. This one here, because it was his Warlord in his list, you can re-roll failed wound rolls for the Warlord. So you've got 1 wounding on 5s, re-rolling 1s, and you've got this one wounding on 6s, re-rolling all failed wound rolls. Again, really, really effective. So you've got two options there that you can play to basically buff both units up, and then re-rolling the misses from the Watchmaster as well. So there's lots of different units there. And then finally, if you're running AdMech, then you've got the Doom Crawlers, which are really effective, or robots with Mars, and you can just put lots of mortal wounds on with a lot of DACA. And that's the new list that I'm going to be running. So, and then the other the option that you want to definitely plug in is the Calidus Assassin, and then that way you can basically really mess with their CPs as well. Okay, so you're just making them spend 3 or 4 CPs. Anyway, guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope it's given you some ideas about how to play knights. Don't fear them so much. There's lots of things that you can do against them. So just to recap, a few things to remember. Move block when possible with either flyers or screening units, and stay outside of 3.1 inches so they can't heroically intervene. Use terrain and stay within terrain over an inch away from the edge so that they can't charge you. And finally, pick a knight, kill a knight. And if you know your army needs everything to happen, do not waste your time on one of them. So for example, I'll give you Mark played a Crest Knight at Battlefield Birmingham, and for his list, he needs Jinx to go off, and he needs Doom to go off, and he needs Vect to go off. He needs those 3 things to happen so he can kill a knight in a turn. If one of those 3 things don't happen, he's going to really, really struggle. So the hardest thing for him to get off is Jinx. He failed Jinx. So at what point he then decided to Doom the same knight, which went off, and he then vected the rotate iron shields. But it's not enough. He needs Jinx as well. So, and also he wasn't quite in range, because actually the other player, Barry, did a really good job to move his units. So when his Talos moved, they had to advance to get in range. So all of a sudden his Talos are hitting on 5s now. He didn't get Jinx off for his Ravagers. So what he should have done was just gone, right, because of A, B, C didn't happen, as soon as A didn't happen, he should have prioritized. He already knew that he was on -1 to hit anyway. He already, and then it's like, well, Jinx didn't go off. So even with the next 2, it's not going to happen. So he needs to Doom something else, Vex something else, or save Vect for later, when the Talos are in range, when the Jinx goes off, and you don't waste your time. You either kill a knight or you leave them alone. That is your options. If you leave them, even with a few wounds left, typically they'll just spend 1 CP and hit you back just as hard as they would anyway, and you've got no closer to really killing it, all right? So you need to commit, take one down, move on. That's all you need to do. Anyway, guys, I hope that's helped give you some ideas about what you can do to face knights.